You know, when we usually talk about high-stakes business, the mind immediately goes to Wall Street, right?
Oh, yeah.
You picture stock tickers, guys invests yelling into phones, rapid-fire decisions where millions are lost in a second.
Of course. That's the Hollywood version of risk.
But if you really want to see high stakes, I mean, life or death, bankruptcy or boon kind of stakes, you need to look at a cornfield in Nebraska or a vineyard in Napa Valley. Because if a CEO makes a bad call, maybe the stock dips for a quarter.
Right.
If a farmer makes a bad decision, or if nature just decides to be difficult, that's it. Crop failure, financial ruin.
It's so true. We often have this sort of storybook idea of farming.
Overalls and a pitchfork.
Exactly. A rooster crowing at dawn. It feels quaint. But modern agriculture is essentially managing a complex biological factory that has no roof.
That is such a vivid image, a factory with no roof.
And it's a factory where you can't control the inputs. I mean, you can't control the rain, you can't control the heat, and you're dealing with volatile market prices on the other end.
It's chaos.
It is chaos. You are trying to manufacture a product while the environment is, actively fighting you.
Which brings us to today's topic.
Yeah.
We are driving into a company that is trying to tame that chaos. We're looking at Arable Labs. And honestly, this isn't just a story about farming. It's a story about data, about sensors, and about shifting an entire industry from intuition to decision.
Exactly. It's the shift from, I think it feels like rain, to, I know the exact moisture level at the root zone.
So to guide us through this, we've pulled together a pretty heavy stack of research. We have an in-depth analysis of Arable's business model from the Institute of Food and Agribusiness Leadership.
IFAL, yeah.
And we're cross-referencing that with notes from the Agribusiness Insights series.
And that IFAL framework is particularly useful here because they break Arable down into 4 pillars.
Right.
Value proposition, distribution, partnerships, and sustainability. We're going to use that structure to see how you actually, digitize a farm.
But before we get into the business school analysis, we have to start with the gadget.
Of course.
Because every good tech story needs an origin story. And this one involves something called, wait for it, tree phones.
It does. And it starts with frustration, which is usually where the best innovation comes from.
Always.
You have this trio of founders, Adam Wolf, Kelly Kaler, and Ben Siegfried. And Adam Wolf is a plant scientist, and he was just hitting a wall.
What was the specific wall? I mean, I assume plant scientists have plenty of data these days. We have satellites, don't we?
We do, but Wolf felt it was the wrong kind of data. 10 years ago, if you wanted to know how your crop was doing, you had, 2 main options.
Okay.
You could look at satellite imagery, or you could check a weather station.
Both sound pretty reasonable on paper.
On paper, sure, but in the field, satellites are tricky, clouds block them.
Right.
If it's a cloudy week, you're flying blind. Plus, the resolution might be too low to see specific plant stress. And often, the satellite passes over on a Tuesday, but you need the data on a Friday. It's not real time.
And the weather stations.
Usually, they're at the local airport,
Look.
so you know it's raining 10 miles away at the county airstrip. That doesn't tell you if it's raining on your specific rows of soybeans.
He wanted ground truth.
He wanted ground truth. He wanted to know what the plant was experiencing right there in the dirt.
So in true startup fashion, they started hacking things together.
Right. They literally strapped devices to trees to measure environmental conditions, hence tree phones.
I love that.
The idea was that the plant is sort of calling in its status report.
Hello? Yes, this is the oak tree. It's a bit dry today.
That was the basic concept. That evolved into a device called the pulse pod, which sounds a bit more scientific.
A little bit.
And eventually, through iteration and ruggedization, that became the Arable Mark series. Specifically the Mark III, which is what they're deploying now.
Okay, so let's paint a picture for everyone listening. If I'm driving past a field in California or Brazil today, and I see one of these, what am I looking at? It's not some giant robot roaming the rows.
No, it's actually quite subtle. It's a disc about the size of a dinner plate. It sits on top of a pole, usually right above the crop canopy. It's solar powered, so it's self-sufficient. It just sits there soaking up sun and data.
And despite the small size, it's doing a lot of heavy lifting.
It's a Swiss Army knife. It has a 5-megapixel camera integrated into it. It's measuring the weather temperature, humidity, pressure. It's measuring plant health via radiometric data.
So how light reflects off the leaves.
Basically, yeah. And it's looking down to measure soil data. It's capturing the entire microclimate in one spot.
And it has to be cuff. The specs mention an IP67 rating.
It has to be. Farming is not a clean environment.
Yeah.
You have dust, torrential rain, baking heat, chemical sprays.
Right.
If you put a standard piece of consumer electronics out there, like your smartphone, it would last about 20 minutes.
Gone.
These are dotting fields in over 30 countries now, so they've been battle tested.
So that's the hardware. It's a rugged solar disk.
Mm-hmm.
But as we know, hardware is just a doorstop if it doesn't solve a problem.
Mm-hmm.
This brings us to the first pillar of our framework, the value proposition. Why does a farmer actually open their wallet for this?
It comes back to that ground truth concept we just mentioned. The core value is precision.
Okay, explain that distinction. Why is field-level precision worth paying for compared to, say, free regional data?
Think about microclimates. You might have a hill in your field where the wind dries out the soil faster than in the valley just a few hundred yards away.
Right.
If you irrigate the whole field based on the valley data, you kill the crops on the hill because they're too dry. If you water based on the hill, you drown the crops in the valley.
So the average is actually a lie.
Exactly. The average serves no one. Arable gives you the specific data for that specific spot, but there's a second layer to the value proposition that I think is even more important.
And that is,
Simplicity.
we touch on this a lot, fragmentation in tech. There's an app for that. It has become a bit of a nightmare.
It really has, especially in agriculture. AgTech is notoriously fragmented. You have a startup selling a soil sensor, another selling a wind gauge, another selling a camera.
And if you're a farmer, you do not want 5 different logins.
5 different passwords, 5 different apps just to figure out if you should turn the water on.
You want a dashboard, not a research project.
Precisely. Arable combined everything into that one disk. One install, one login, all the data streams correlated in one place. That reduces the mental load significantly.
But data is still just numbers. If the dashboard says soil moisture 14%, that might not mean anything to me. I mean, is 14% good? Is it panic time?
And that is the third piece of the value prop, actionable insights. They use AI-powered analytics to translate the raw numbers into a decision. It doesn't just say it's dry. It uses predictive modeling to say, based on the forecast and current soil levels, you need to irrigate on Thursday afternoon to maximize yield.
So it's moving from diagnostics to prescription.
Yes. It advises on nutrient timing, when to fertilize, so the plant actually absorbs it rather than letting it wash away. And it helps with harvest timing. It takes the guesswork out of the equation.
The camera must play a big role here, too, regarding risk, right?
It does. This is the risk reduction element. The system acts as a scout.
A scout.
It can visually spot signs of disease, drought stress, or variable growth rates long before a human walking the perimeter might notice them.
It's like having a scout who never sleeps, never takes a coffee break, and has a perfect memory of what the field looked like yesterday versus today.
That's a great way to put it. It catches problems while they're still small enough to fix.
Okay, so the gadget works, and the value is clear. But now we hit the business side. How do you get this into the hands of farmers? Because if farmers are notoriously careful with their capital.
They are.
This brings us to element 2, distribution strategy.
This is where Arable made a very smart pivot. Traditionally, farm equipment is CapEx, capital expenditure.
A huge upfront cost.
You buy a tractor, it costs a fortune, you own it. It's a massive upfront risk. And if the tech changes in 3 years, you're stuck with an obsolete, very expensive tractor.
Right, a very expensive doorstop.
Exactly. So Arable moved to a hardware as a service model, or HOS.
Break that down for us. What is HOS?
Instead of buying the disk outright for a huge sum, the farmer subscribes to the data service. The hardware is just bundled into that subscription.
It's the Netflix model versus buying the DVD.
In a sense, yes, and this lowers the barrier to entry dramatically. If you are a small or mid-sized farm, you can't afford a $100,000 sensor network, but you can afford a seasonal subscription.
It democratizes the technology.
It does. It's not just for the mega corporate farms anymore.
That makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
And how are they physically reaching these customers? Are they just relying on a website?
They have a direct-to-customer team, sure, but agriculture is a relationship business. You buy from the guy you've bought seed from for 20 years. You buy from the dealer who fixes your combine. So Arable uses channel partnerships.
Leveraging the trust that already exists.
Right. They sell through trusted agribusinesses and distributors, but the source material points to an even more interesting future strategy.
Which is?
OEM partnerships.
OEM. That's original equipment manufacturers.
Right. Imagine buying a new irrigation pivot or a tractor, and the Arable tech is already built in. It comes standard from the factory.
That's the path to ubiquity. You don't have to sell the farmer on it. It's just part of the modern machine.
Like having Bluetooth in your car.
Exactly.
And for global scale, getting into emerging markets in South America or Asia, they are looking at local distributors who understand those specific regional challenges. You can't just parachute into a new country and expect to sell. You need locals who know the terrain.
Now, you mentioned irrigation pivots. That transitions us perfectly to the third pillar, complementary partnerships.
Mhm.
Because Arable isn't trying to replace the tractor or the sprinkler. They're trying to give them a brain.
This is crucial. Arable is building an ecosystem, and the standout example in the research is their partnership with Valley Irrigation.
Valley is the giant in this space.
Yeah.
They make those massive center pivots, the things that create those green circles you see when you fly over the Midwest.
Correct. Now think about the synergy here. Valley has the heavy machinery, the steel, and the motors.
The brawn.
And Arable has the intelligence, the data on what the plants need. When you connect them, you get automated water management.
So the sensor talks to the pivot.
The sensor says, Zone A is thirsty, and the pivot turns on and waters Zone A. The farmer doesn't have to drive out there.
It's closing the loop between detection and action.
That is true automation. That's the factory running itself.
Wow.
And it extends beyond just machinery. They partner with universities for validation because farmers are skeptical. They want to see the academic proof that this works.
Sure.
And interestingly, they partner with food processors.
The companies that buy the crops.
Yes. Think about the big food brands. They are under pressure from consumers and regulators to prove their products are sustainable. They need traceability.
They need to prove they didn't waste water or drench the crops in chemicals just to hit a quota.
And Arable provides that digital paper trail. The food processor can say, we know exactly how this tomato was grown because they have the data from the field. It links the farm to the fork.
Speaking of sustainability, that's our fourth pillar. And I want to be careful here because sustainability is a buzzword.
It is.
Companies love to say they are green. Is this just PR or is there real impact?
The IFAL analysis argues that here, sustainability is embedded in the DNA of the product. It's not some bonus feature. It's the result of the product working as intended.
Because efficiency is sustainability.
Exactly. If you are precise, you are by definition less wasteful. Let's look at the specific outcomes first. Water conservation.
Which is becoming the defining issue of our time. We read about aquifers drying up constantly.
If you optimize your irrigation schedule based on real-time plant needs rather than just a timer, you save massive amounts of water. In places like the American West or Australia, that is the difference between staying in business or folding.
It's the same logic for chemicals, right? Input reduction.
Fertilizers and pesticides are expensive. Farmers don't want to spray them if they don't have to. And there is a massive market for it. The precision agriculture market is projected to reach, what, $22.5 billion by 2028? So this isn't just charity, it's a massive growth sector.
Okay, we've covered the tech, the business model, the partnerships, and the environmental wins. It sounds perfect.
Little too perfect.
Right. But this is a deep dive, and we need to be critical. We can't just read the brochure. The IFAL report highlights strategic dilemmas. Nothing is ever this easy. What are the hurdles Arable is facing?
There are some significant ones. The first is the challenge of scaling affordability. It's kind of a Goldilocks problem. They need to keep the device cheap enough for diverse geographies. A farmer in India has a very different budget than a corporate farm in Iowa.
Good.
But the device still has to be incredibly rugged and high-tech. If you make it too cheap, it breaks.
And if you make it too expensive, you limit your market to the top 1%.
And maintaining that quality control while scaling manufacturing to millions of units is a nightmare for any hardware company. It's really, really hard to do hardware well at scale.
Then there's the issue of channel conflict, right? We talked about them selling directly and through partners.
That is always a source of friction. If I'm a local distributor and I see Arable selling the same device on their website for a lower price or offering deals I can't match, I'm going to stop pushing their product.
Yeah, you'd be furious.
Arable has to walk a very fine line to keep their partners happy while still building their own brand. You don't want to bite the hand that feeds you.
Another tension point the sources highlight is data friction.
This is the classic battle between open and closed systems. Farmers want a seamless experience. They want their John Deere tractor to talk to their Arable sensor, which talks to their accounting software.
But for the tech companies, data is the new oil. They want to hoard it.
Right. So Arable has to decide how much they open up their API, If they integrate with everyone, they become more useful to the farmer. But they also risk becoming just a dumb pipe of data for other platforms.
They have to balance openness with protecting their own secret sauce.
Exactly.
And finally, there's one dilemma that I think is a bit ironic, the environmental irony.
The e-waste problem, yes.
We are building these devices to save the planet. But the devices are made of plastic, circuit boards, lithium batteries, and rare earth metals.
It is the paradox of green tech. To save the environment, we are manufacturing more electronics.
So what's the plan?
Arable has to have a plan for the end of life of these devices. When a Mark III dies after 5 years in the field, where does it go? Does it end up in a landfill?
As they scale, that footprint grows.
The argument is that the water and chemicals saved far outweigh the cost of the device's production.
And the math usually supports that.
It does, but it is an environmental cost they cannot ignore. They have to be responsible stewards of their own hardware.
It's a complex picture. We've gone from Adam Wolf's frustration with clouds blocking his satellite view to a global network of IoT devices that is fundamentally changing how food is grown.
It really is a revolution. We are watching the digitization of the world's oldest industry. We are moving from, Grandpa did it this way, to the algorithm says do this.
And that leads to a question I want to leave everyone with today. We've talked about the sensors acting as eyes, the AI acting as the brain, the irrigation pivots acting as the hands.
The farm is becoming a robot.
Exactly. So if the machine knows when to plant, when to water, when to fertilize, and when to harvest, what is the role of the human farmer in 10 years?
That is the big question. Do farmers become essentially systems administrators? Are they just IT support for the field?
Yeah.
Or does their role shift to something entirely new, focusing purely on strategy while the bots do the work?
Or do we reach a point where the farm manages itself entirely? It's a shift in identity as much as it is in technology.
It's certainly something to think about next time you're in the produce aisle picking out an apple. There might be a lot more data in that apple than you realize.
Indeed. That's it for this deep dive into Arable Labs and the future of decision agriculture. Thanks for listening.
Stay curious.